Hey everyone! Happy Friday. I can't believe I'm one of those people who say happy Friday now. Oh gosh, how are we all doing? I am so excited to be here today, along with Etta to do our last, are you ready for this? Our last HTML session, our last session for the week, and our last session on accessibility. If you're tuning in for the first time, hi, my name's Carmen. Etta, Jess, and I are teaching a free responsive web design bootcamp at the Bad Website Club. And if you're catching it for the first time, don't worry. There's no catch up. There's no tests. There's no attendance. So this is just easy, fun, and at your own pace. Thank you so much, Etta, who says it's our last HTML session. Here's the link. So a couple things before we get started. First of all, I want to hear, how's it been? Are you all excited for CSS? I'm super excited. You know, a lot of folks say that CSS is difficult. I mean, I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm going to ramble a little. A lot of folks say that, can we hear you? What? Can you hear us? Somewhere in the distance, I guess. Sorry, I get distracted by the chat today. What did I want to say? Yeah, no, I'm super excited for CSS. You know, at least back when I started, CSS used to have a weird double-sided reputation where on the one hand, it was seen as a very soft, you know, very soft, very gentle reputation, you know, oh, CSS is easy. Let's put the designers to work on that. But at the same time, these were the same developers who were saying, oh, no, I don't do CSS. It's too difficult. So I am of the opinion that I love CSS. And I think it's, did you know that it's a fully complete programming language? It's actually possible to do calculations and stuff with CSS. So, but before we're not going to get there yet, I want to address something that Me Can't Spell said. I'm not excited for CSS. I feel I'm not HTML proficient yet. Me Can't Spell. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I would love to hear what being proficient in HTML means to you. Because sometimes I feel like this is a trap that a lot of folks who are getting started in web development or programming in general fall into, which is like they feel they need to be experts in something before moving on to another topic. And I'm not here to encourage you to have like, you know, everything is easy. Like, I mean, stuff is hard, but I think it's not so important to be proficient in something as it is to be familiar with something. I think understanding the fundamentals. Do you remember, I don't know if you were there for the session we were teaching a couple weeks ago where I was talking about how I didn't like the wording of basic HTML because it kind of implies that HTML is basic. But somebody suggested the word fundamentals in the chat. Might have been you, and I apologize. And I find that to be much better wording because understanding the fundamentals allows you to jump off or springboard into other topics. Me Can't Spell says, for starters, I haven't gone through all the sessions. Oh, yeah. But hey, there is no timeline here. There's no race. There's no first place, second place. Please take your time. Like Matthew Glassman is saying, like, these are pretty separate from one another and you can kind of learn both at the same time. I like to think of HTML as Lego blocks. You can build with them. You might not like what you build, but when you compare it to a Lego set, love that. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. But before, let's do the housekeeping. If you're tuning in for the first time, bear in mind that you're agreeing to abide by our code of conduct, badwebsite.club/code-of-contact. The schedule for the bootcamp you'll find at badwebsite.club/bootcamps/spring-2026. Free Codecamps Discord is welcoming. It's there for you. We have a bootcamp discussion channel for all of you. So you can definitely come in and ask questions. And as I love to insist, answer questions. And most importantly, if you miss any sessions, don't worry. There's no race. Like I said, everything is recorded and stays on YouTube. If you go to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@badwebsiteclub, you'll find everything there. Okay. Well, let's dive right into our topic of the day, which is finishing off HTML accessibility. And like I said, HTML. So let's go over our homework from yesterday, which really was go over the multimedia player lab, read the review, take the accessibility quiz, and take the overall HTML review. So here's my question for all of you. Depending on how long a session you would like to have today, given this is a review session, I'm not actually going to be covering anything new. So if you have any questions, now is the time. If not, we'll just go over our notes from the last couple of days and then go have an early weekend. Okay? So let's start with our day one, when Jess covered sort of like the introduction to accessibility, which really covers what accessibility is as well as who's it for. And as said, I said on I think it was Friday. It was Friday that we had the first accessibility session, I believe. And, no, it was Monday. I apologize. My brain is a bit woofy today. Yeah, so, accessibility covers thinking about folks who have special need, who have extended needs for using websites. Be usable for all kinds of folks. So visual impairments, hearing impairments, mobility impairments, cognitive impairments. So these are all part of what make up the needs to make a website accessible. But like I was talking yesterday, it's going to be something that affects us all. I will first answer Matthew Glassman. Will there be a class on Monday? I assume so, even though the States has a holiday. So given that neither myself, Jess, nor Edda are in the United States, it's probably not a holiday in any of those places. We try to keep this bootcamp non-US centric. So yep, there's a class. In fact, if you check the schedule, we're there Monday to Friday every week until the end of the bootcamp. So I posted on the Free Codecamp Discord yesterday something that I find really important, which is the curb cut effect. Don't know if you've heard of it, and we kind of covered it yesterday a little bit. We kind of covered a very, very small part of it, which is that accessibility features benefit us all. It comes from the fact that adding the little ramps to curbs on the street make it a lot easier for everybody to be mobile across the street. People with prams, people with who are carrying heavy things or trolleys, super handy. Some accessibility needs are perhaps more momentary. I was talking yesterday about how when I'm checking my phone in the middle of the night, which I probably should not do, Um, uh, pardon me. When I check my phone in the middle of the night, which I probably shouldn't do, um, it's oh gosh, why isn't my brain working today? I'm so sorry, everybody. Uh, Let me try that one more time. So when I check my phone in the middle of the night, it becomes a little bit more difficult for me to process, for example, low contrast color text. We're actually going to be learning a little bit about that when we cover CSS. That is the contrast of color between the text and its background, because I'm a little sleepy. Or perhaps I'm in a low noisy environment and I can't listen to audio files. I'm sure we've all had the experience being in a public. Y'all are distracting me. No, you know what? A little bit of that. No, I'm kidding. I'm just, gosh, it's been a long day. I apologize. But I'm sure we've all been in that situation where we're on a public transport, perhaps, or in a noisy area, and people are using their phone super loud. They're probably watching videos super loud or doing FaceTime video calls super loud. And it's difficult, and it's maybe seen as impolite to listen to audio files on your phone. This is a situation where folks with folks with special accessibility needs, not special, pardon me, with audio. Gosh, I cannot talk today. I apologize, folks. Having accessibility for audio can also be super important, like captions and subtitles, which we covered yesterday. There we go. So, yeah, the curb cut effect says that accessibility benefits us all. So we have the POUR acronym for the guidelines that are proposed by the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which is that websites or web applications must be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So, one very common use or way to access to test our own accessibility is voiceovers or screen readers. So using VoiceOver on Apple-based operating systems, or Narrator on Windows, or things like Orca for Linux. I've actually never tried Orca. It would be interesting to do so. I do a lot of accessibility testing on the mobile apps that I develop, for example. And these are ways to test how the text is perceived for folks who, for example, don't have access to experiencing a website visually. But as said, not just for text to speech. There's also Braille, navigation aids, and web browsing assistance. Yeah, visibility of text is important. I'm going to go a little bit faster because this is stuff we've already covered this week. So the size of the text is important. How we interact with our websites is important. For example, foot pedals, we were talking about these yesterday, touchpads, joysticks, trackballs. My wife uses a trackball. It's, purely a preferential choice, but it's something she really enjoys. Screen magnifiers are super important. I actually use these a lot when showing stuff to colleagues or friends or family or loved ones. So zooming in using my Mac is something that I do a lot. I can't demo it here, but it's actually something that I do with all of you whenever we're teaching. So by holding down Command on my Mac and scrolling up, I make the text bigger, something that's super important. Then there's voice recognition. I've seen a lot of folks there was a time, especially when everybody was like super hustly online, like doing lots of like hustle culture, got to work every day, got to, bring out that content. And a lot of folks would get, what's it called? Repetitive. What is it called? When they would hurt their wrists, or they would get carpal tunnel, repetitive stress, something. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Anyway, or they would get injuries from overextending their fingers or their joints. And what a lot of folks do, and it's actually pretty common to do, is coding using voice input. Carpal tunnel is correct. Good to know. Thank you very much. So anyway, this is something that is being seen as used a lot. And of course, we've talked a lot about semantic HTML and how important it is for SEO or search engine optimization. However, it's also good for accessibility. For example, do y'all remember when I was showing you reader mode on your browsers? Reader mode, not just important for those of us who wants to like remove all of the pop-ups to sign up for what are they called? Newsletters and stuff. It's also helpful for folks who perhaps might become overwhelmed by lots of images and CSS and animations. There is a special way of programming CSS that we're going to hopefully see called prefers reduced motions, which allows us to program our websites in a way that disables animation. So just something to bear in mind. But going back to reader mode, by having semantically accurate HTML, we can make those websites less overwhelming. I get overwhelmed by websites pretty easily. And as we were saying, like having that structure work, not just for us, but for our readers, is super handy. So that was part one of accessibility. Then we looked at ways of making our tables and forms more accessible. For example, we looked at captions, telling us what our tables are used for. Remember when we were covering tables, we were looking at the TH element. It helped us distinguish headers. And there are actually two types of headers. We've got the column headers, as we see here in this first row, in the T head, and row headers, which can be in each individual row. And what's even better is that you can add a scope attribute for each of them. So you can say this is a column header, and this is a row header, which is super handy. There's also row groups and column groups. Just going to look at some comments here. Another valuable thing for VoiceOver I've learned from experience: long periods of looking at the screen can be bad for those with really dry eyes. Taking a break and using voice could be helpful. I love that. I actually should be, speaking of accessibility and taking care of our eyes, I should be using my blue light glasses. But they're a little too reflective, and then y'all can't see my pretty eyes. But I should get into the habit of it. Anyway, blue light glasses help you keep out the blue light. So the more you know. Oh gosh, John says, I miss the trackball. I think it's better and faster than the touchpad. That's the thing. Like, you can actually buy, is it here? Hang on a sec. Let me see if my wife's trackball is here. It is not. Never mind. But she has a big, like, honking one, like, from Logitech. It's really cool. Thank you, Mel. Anyway, let's talk about forms. Oh, this one is super interesting, and I don't know if y'all know about this. So, of course, having a label that is assigned to a specific input is helpful because the screen reader and all of the software that renders the form makes it easier to identify like which input a label is assigned to, and makes it a little bit easier to understand what that input is for. However, it's actually, again, curb cut effect. Y'all, I'm a big fan of the curb cut effect. Edda, I'm so sorry. What was the name of that? You know me. You're already way ahead of me. What is the name of it? Of that website for HTML? For showing off it? Yes. Can we take a moment to just say how much we adore Edda? She's the best. Thank you, HTML editor. So let's hop over there because I want to show you all something interesting. So where is my accessibility? Yep. Fantastic. So check this out. When does Edda get to present? It's Edda with a D. And why did I pronounce Logitech? Is it not Logitech? Logitech? I don't know. Force a habit. How is it? How is it pronounced? Is it with a J? Because, you know, it's a GIF, not a GIF. I don't care what the creator of the GIF says. Okay, sorry. Got distracted. See, here's what's interesting about the label. If I check this out. Check this out. Right now, the label is not assigned to the ID of name, right? So if I click on the label, nothing happens. However, right now the 4 is assigned to the name. Check this out, check this out. If I click on your name, it focuses the input. That's what's great. And again, curb cut effect. And this works for a whole bunch of stuff. Check this out. Checkboxes. How annoying is it, especially on mobile, when this thing is so small to click on, but clicking on the label, because it's assigned, I can click here. This is why you might notice on some websites that clicking on the label doesn't work. Ooh, Mel with the facts. The same happens when you embed the input inside the label. Absolutely. However, this is also nicer accessibility-wise. I'm not saying that your way is wrong. It is absolutely correct. But again, this is something that the browser automatically does, knowing what we want. Didn't realize you could do that with checkboxes and labels. Yeah, and it's not just checkboxes. It's not just inputs. It's also radio buttons. Ta-da! It's also text area. Actually, I don't know. I'm probably talking out of my butt. Let me see if I got this right. Yep. So fun fact, accessibility is good for us all. So Me Can Spell says, so you need the 4 and ID attributes. Absolutely. Because if you do not, check this out, removed, can't click. So yeah, let's carry on. to part 3. Oh, Lucy Pith is asking, is this an online ID? Yep, Etta linked it earlier. Here, let me get that link. Let me get that comment. Curb cut. I think that was after. People are starting to do stuff outside again. Please let me know if it's loud. Where did that link go? Ah, thank you, Etta. htmleditor.gitlab.io. It's not a specific IDE. It's just something I can use to quickly show you HTML. Big props to Etta for showing it to us. Does the pronunciation and change the product? I don't know. Oh, so it is loud? Please let me know. Yeah, now the children are screaming. If y'all can hear it, let me know and I'll close the window. So we're doing Aria next. We covered, did you all get to meet Aria? No, it's not loud. Great. Did you all get to meet? Aw. Yeah, so this is the Accessible Rich Internet Applications initiative. By the way, folks, I'm covering all of this, but I invite you to please ask questions. That's what we're here for. And what Aria lets us do is assign specific attributes to elements that help a browser as well as accessibility tools understand the accessibility related purposes of our HTML better. So for example, you can have a div with the role of button, right? I would strongly recommend against it because we already have a native HTML element for buttons. And native here is the key word because, don't click that. HTML and the browser provide us with a bunch of HTML elements like links. We could have a div that we use as a link if you like wired it up with JavaScript. But again, why do that when we already have something that natively supports it for us? And native here is a key word. So we covered the different Aria roles, document structure roles, widget roles, landmark roles. And you're going to see that a lot of these are related, are very similar to semantic HTML elements, right? We also have Aria labels. Oh, the question was for me, what am I having for dinner? Well, I don't see that as super relevant to the boot camp. Don't know yet. Anywho, right, so we can have specific labels that help a screen reader to understand better what the purpose of a specific element is. In this case, a search button. Right? And what something is labeled by to relate it to a specific element. We also have Aria hidden, which we hinted at briefly yesterday when we were talking about having by having empty alt texts. Having an empty alt text on an image will cause it to be skipped by a screen reader, but you can also use the Aria hidden attribute to do the same thing. There are other kind of tricky ways to do that. Tricky isn't the right word. Distinct ways of doing that using the hidden attribute. Same with display none in CSS, which we'll see soon. And visibility hidden in CSS. we can use the aria described by attribute to relate elements to their descriptions. Super helpful. Oh gosh. And that's 3 out of 4 down. I want to take a moment to answer some questions. So, can you overdo it on accessibility? It's a great question. Instinctively, I want to say no. I will be very upfront, Matthew Glassman, and say, I'm not an expert. I am not an accessibility expert, so I can't say for sure. However, I don't think so. For example, on my personal website, I have very minimal animations. I don't have a lot of JavaScript. I think there's no JavaScript on my website. Mostly because I want to keep it accessible for folks who might have a slow connection, for example. So, yeah, I don't think it's possible to overdo it. I wish I were more confident to say, no, you cannot. It's a good question, though. Let's see what else. Oh, is anybody doing the LinkedIn post that Naomi put in the Free Code Camp Discord chat? We're lucky to have that opportunity to collaborate and connect with each other. Oh, I love that. Yes! I believe there are a few people in this bootcamp who want to try and do some sort of a study group after this course finishes to stay connected and collaborate. See, this is what I've been really, the drum I've been hitting hard about this bootcamp. It's meant to invite you all to collaborate with one another, with just Ed and I to be there to guide you along the way and answer any questions that y'all might have. So let's briefly go over what we talked about yesterday, and then we're kind of done. Yep. Just gonna take a little sip of water because it is warm. So, alt text, we all know, used to describe images, but it's important to have accurate or be deliberate with our descriptions of images so that it's helpful for, let me try that again. Helpful for folks. What a difficult thing to say. Helpful for folks. Got it. Ooh. Got a great question there from Mel. I'll get right to it. Using these to also be descriptive when using images and links is important. Using accurate and helpful link text is important, not just click here or learn more, but rather sign up for the seminar details, etc. We can add captions to our video and audio elements using the track element. We can add transcripts writing simple HTML. Let me try that again. Using essential HTML. And yeah, we can use tab index. We can use tab index to make our websites keyboard friendly, as well as using access key to make keyboard shortcuts on specific elements. And is that it? I guess so. We've got our last lab here, which is the multimedia player. This one's pretty big, but as always, you've got your user stories, you've got your tests. Remember, one at a time. Test-driven development. So let's do some questions before we go. So Mel's asking, when do you add OG tags? Open Graph tags, yeah. Reading through the HTML review reminded me of Open Graph. I'm still a little confused when to add those meta tags. A lot depends on already having deployed the website, and you're absolutely right. So when do you add them? I would say once you've got a domain figured out. Do we know what a domain is? It's the address of our website, the URL, right? Once you've set that up, like you said, Mel, it depends on having already deployed the website. Let's say you already have your website developed and you want to start sharing it on social media. By that time, it's a good idea to have these Open Graph tags. Same goes for when you want to start having it be indexed on search engines. Most search engines allow you to link your domain or your URL to that search, to an account where you can have a console for seeing how your website is indexing. I hope that's helpful. It's not something you need before. It's not something you need to have before. It's a nice to have. That's what I'm trying to get at. Having Open Graph tags is a nice to have if you're trying to have good indexing or a good social media brand or all of that good stuff. Hope that's helpful. And I would like to, after the main part, to have Carmen give us a preview of the CSS that we will starting with next week. I am going to be a little mean and not show too much, but I guess a little bit won't hurt. So next week, Jess is going to show us, and there is so much to read. And as always, the reading is helpful to do. It's not mandatory. We are going to cover it. Jess is going to show us the fundamentals. See, it's basic CSS. I prefer to think of it as fundamental CSS. We're going to be reviewing how to write it, what the syntax is, how to use it, how to apply it. Let's see what our reading is. What is CSS? What is the basic anatomy? And this is something I do want to briefly look at because here's the important part. What I would recommend doing when learning CSS, Matthew Glassman, that is a question. That is indeed a question that I have opinions on. We're just gonna throw out words, huh? Okay, no, before I get distracted. What I really recommend familiarizing ourselves with CSS and really starting to feel comfortable with is the syntax of CSS. It's made up of 3 parts: selectors, and then pairs of property values, right? This is the most essential part of CSS. But what I really would recommend focusing on is the selector. There are a few ways of having selectors in CSS, such as, where is it? Yes. So let's take a look at our HTML here, right? We have an H1, an H2, and a P element. So if I wanted to have the H1 have a font size of, I don't know, 50 pixels, that's how we write it. Notice that the syntax for the selector of an element is just the name of the element. If we want to write a selector for an ID, then we write hashtag and the name of the ID. Same thing. Then there's a class selector, which is written with a dot. So, dot subheading. These can be combined. For example, you can select, oh, y'all are going to like this, h1 dot subheading. So this is going to select all h1s that have the class subheading. You might notice, but nothing happened. Why? Because there are no elements in here that are h1 with the class subheading. I'm going to be super upfront with y'all and say that selectors can be gnarly to learn, can be weird. I have a game, CSS. Y'all heard of CSS Diner? If you don't, if you haven't heard of it, I highly recommend it. Where is my browser? And I'll pop the link, Edda. Oh, you beat me. Oh my gosh, you're so fast. Thank you, Edda. So if you grab this link, fantastic. There's also Flexbox Froggy and a grid game, but I love this the most. This is a game to help you learn CSS selectors. I'm not going to play it for y'all because I would be spoiling it, but highly recommend checking this out when learning CSS. I think that's as far as I'm going to go with previewing CSS, because we've already covered a little bit of like what it is and previewed like how we can use it for layout, for helping with layout. So I'll leave it there for now. Let's see what other questions we got. Ah, yes, Matthew Glassman was asking, is Sass still a thing? Sass is a programming language that compiles or translates to CSS. Is it still a thing? Yes. Is it something that a lot of folks recommend using? No. So that is as far as I'm going to go with talking about Sass. CSS has advanced a lot over the years, and a lot of its features are almost making Sass redundant. Tailwind, another way of writing CSS where you write classes instead of CSS. I don't think we'll be covering it in this bootcamp. Is it still a thing? Yes. So that covers that. So let's see. Right. Christina was asking, I have a question about tab index. In the lessons, it says that if you use above 0, you can change the tab order, but in accessibility review, it says never to use numbers above 0. Cool. What's the question? I'm being pedantic. I'm being super pedantic. Like your point is valid. It's recommending not to mess with the accessibility order of things, especially when there is an expected order. Never is a strong word. I would say use it not wisely. Use it as needed, I would say. For example, if you've got different orders in a CSS grid, it might be important to set manual tab indexes. But I'm going to be honest. I've never used manual tab indexes because I try to be semantic in my use of the tab index. So I would say avoid learning it. Avoid using it if you don't need it. How many different measurements are there? Pixels, rems, etc. There is a list. Let me see. MDN, PX. Give me a sec. Values and units. Here we go. So, in case you're wondering what Matthew Glassman is referring to, they're referring to CSS values and units. Thank you, Edda. Check out MDN. MDN is super handy. What are the most used? I'm not going to go too much into it. REM and EM are the most used because they are relative units. There are such things as relative and absolute units. I apologize for referencing a meme, but I love this. Got to learn the rules before you can learn how to break them effectively. Absolutely. Love that. Again, this is a question that's a little bit ahead, but let's see how many types there are. Integers, numbers, dimension. No, that's not it. Here we go. Centimeters, millimeters, quarter millimeters, inches, picas? I don't know how to pronounce that. Points and pixels. Friends, I'm going to be honest with you. I have only ever used pixels. These are absolute units, absolute length units. I'm not going to get into why it's better to use relative units today, because we will be covering it later in the bootcamp. Oh. So let's see. Percentage. So we've got REMs, EMs, there's percentages. There's a whole bunch. Check it out. Is the theory here to continue every course on Free Code Camp in succession? I would say that is more of a question for Free Code Camp. And it also kind of falls down. I hate to be that person who says it depends. Use Free Code Camp and Bad Website Club as you would any other resource, in that it needs to be something that fits your needs. I'm going to say something very annoying, which is that there is no such thing in learning, not just learning tech, but learning in general, as a set clear path. If there was a 10-step way to get into tech or to get into programming, some podcast bro would have already written a book about it and, made $1 bajillion. So I'm sorry, there is no way to say what is the best practice here. So to try and be a little bit more helpful, Free Code Camp has spent ages, yonks, working on this stuff and perfecting it so that you can follow them in the order that they suggest that works best for the most people. Remember, this is an open source tool, and folks have been working through them for years. Again, I know this isn't the most helpful answer, but I hope it's somewhat helpful. Gosh. Question from Matthew Glassman. Is the HTML and CSS book by John Duckett still relevant or updated? I have never heard of the HTML and CSS book by John Duckett. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'll say this. Have there been additions to HTML and CSS over the years? Yes. However, that doesn't mean the book is outdated. I'm afraid I've kind of fallen out of sync with the latest and greatest books on learning stuff. But this is a question to pose to the other learners as well. So yeah, maybe something the chat can answer. All right, well, let's see. Shall we wrap up? There are no other questions. Let me see. Yep. No other questions. Shall I let all of you go to have a weekend? Can I just take a moment to say kudos? We learned a whole bunch of stuff this last, has it been 3 weeks now? My time brain is bad. 4 weeks? Gosh, 4 weeks. Thank you, Etta. Oh my goodness. So look, I know that some folks in the chat have been saying it's we're falling behind, or that you're struggling to keep up. I would just like to remind you, this is an ongoing process. Every time I teach this bootcamp, I learn new stuff. It's a lot. And what I really want to drive home is that it's more important to familiarize yourself, to be exposed to concepts, because later on you're going to be confronted by a problem when you're like, oh yeah, that funny Carmen lady was talking about something related to labeled by, or or nerding out about, gosh, I don't know, pikas. So be patient with yourselves. I really want to say, Mel, really enjoyed reminding you how to ride tables. Proving my point exactly. No, sorry. Proving my point exactly. None of this is linear. So please pat yourself on the backs. Pat, pat. And yeah, take it easy. And I'll see you all next week. I know it's weekend for me, but as some of y'all might be starting your day, I wish you a great rest of your day in any case, and I'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.